The little girl hadn't spoken a single word in 2 years. Not when her mama died. Not when her daddy wept. Not when the doctor begged her to try. But the moment Clara Jane Weston stepped onto that frozen porch, sent to the wrong ranch by a cruel twist of fate, the child's tiny hand grabbed her skirt. And in a voice rusty from silence, she whispered, "Mama, you finally came." If you want to know what happened next, subscribe to our channel, stay until the end, and comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels. Wyoming Territory, winter of 1878. Clara's knuckles bled from the cold. She raised her fist to knock again, but the door swung open before she could. A man filled the frame. Tall, broad-shouldered, jaw set, like it was carved from the same stone as the mountains behind him. His eyes, pale gray, winter sky cold, moved over her once, twice, then settled on her face with the warmth of a loaded rifle. "Whatever you're sellin', I ain't buyin'." Clara steadied her voice. "I ain't sellin' nothin', sir. Name's Clara Jane Weston. Missouri Matrimonial Agency sent me. I'm here to marry a Mr. Samuel Briggs." The man didn't blink. "Name's Josiah McAllister. Ain't no Briggs on this land. Ain't never been." He gripped the doorframe. "You got the wrong ranch, ma'am." He moved to shut the door. Clara stepped forward, boot crunching on frozen wood. "Please. Stagecoach already left for town. Storm's rollin' in fast. I got nowhere else to go tonight." Josiah's jaw tightened. His knuckles went white against the frame. For a long moment, he just looked at her, this woman in a threadbare wool coat, shiverin' like a half-drowned cat, with nothing but a beat-up travel trunk at her feet and desperation in her eyes. She watched his gaze drop to her hands, to the blood on her knuckles, to the way she held her arm pressed tight against her side like something hurt underneath. "One night." His voice was flint striking steel. "Come mornin', I take you back to town myself. That's the deal. That's fair." "Ain't meant to be fair. It's meant to be final." He stepped aside. Clara picked up her trunk and crossed the threshold. The warmth hit her like a fist to the chest. Wood smoke, coffee grounds, the ghost of bacon grease still clinging to the air. And underneath it all, something else, something stale. Like a house that had stopped breathing a long time ago. Josiah shut the door hard behind her. "Guest room's down the hall. Second door. Don't go poking around where you ain't invited." "Wouldn't dream of it." "Good." He grabbed his coat from a hook by the door. "Got horses to tend. You need something, you wait." He was halfway out before Clara found her voice. "Mr. McAllister?" He stopped, but didn't turn. "Thank you for letting me stay." His shoulders went rigid. "Don't thank me yet." The door slammed shut behind him. Clara stood alone in the silence. The parlor was neat but neglected. Dust on the windowsills, cobwebs in the high corners, a stone fireplace with embers still glowing orange, and on the mantel, watching over the room like a saint in a church, a photograph of a woman. Clara moved closer. The woman in the picture had kind eyes and a gentle mouth. Her hair was pinned up proper, a few loose curls framing her face. She wore blue, a soft, faded blue, that matched the ribbon at her throat. Beside the photograph sat a man's pipe, cold and unused, a child's wooden horse, and a gold wedding band, too small for a man's hand, resting on a folded handkerchief, like it was waiting to be claimed. Clara's chest tightened. She knew a house in mourning when she saw one. Her fingers brushed the frame, and she whispered to no one. "What happened here?" A sound made her turn. Footsteps. Small. Soft. Bare feet on wooden floor. From the shadow of the hallway, a child emerged. A little girl no more than 5 years old, thin as a reed, wearing a faded nightdress 2 sizes too big, the hem dragging on the floor. Her dark hair hung in tangles past her shoulders. Her feet were bare despite the cold. But it was her eyes that stopped Clara's breath. Old eyes. Haunted eyes. Eyes that had seen something no child should ever see. The girl walked toward Clara. Didn't hesitate. Didn't blink. Just walked straight across the room like she was pulled by an invisible thread. She stopped at Clara's feet. Then her small hands reached out and grabbed the fabric of Clara's skirt. Grabbed it tight. Grabbed it like she was drowning, and Clara was the only solid ground in the world. And in a voice that cracked like ice breaking on a frozen river, a voice that hadn't been used in 2 long years, she whispered, "Mama, you finally came." Clara couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't do nothing but stare at this child clutching her skirt like salvation itself. The back door banged open. Josiah stood in the framed snow, in his hair face white as bone. "Ellie Mae." His voice shook. "What did you say?" The girl didn't look at him. Her eyes stayed fixed on Clara's face. "Mama," she said again. Stronger this time, certain. Josiah crossed the room in 3 strides. He dropped to his knees in front of his daughter, hands hovering over her shoulders like he was afraid to touch her. "Baby girl." His voice cracked down the middle. "Baby girl, you're talking. You're—" He looked up at Clara, eyes wild. "She ain't spoken. Not one word. Not since—" He couldn't finish. Clara knelt down slow, bringing herself level with the child. "Hello, sweetheart." She kept her voice soft, steady. "My name's Clara. I ain't your mama, but I'm real glad to meet you." Ellie's grip on her skirt only tightened. "Don't leave." The words came out ragged, desperate. "Please don't leave like she did." Clara's throat closed up. Her hand found the girl's cheek, cold as marble, soft as silk. "I ain't leaving tonight, darlin'. I promise you that." Ellie stared at her for a long moment. Then she did something that broke Clara's heart clean in 2. She let go of the skirt, stepped forward, and wrapped her thin arms around Clara's neck. Clara held her tight, felt the small body trembling against her chest. Over the child's shoulder, she met Josiah's eyes. He was crying. This hard man, this stone-faced rancher, tears running down his weathered cheeks without shame. 2 years, he said hoarsely. 2 years of silence. Doctors said she might never talk again. Said the shock broke something in her mind. "What happened?" Clara asked quietly. Josiah wiped his face with the back of his hand. "Her mama died. That's what happened." He stood up slow like his bones ached. "Stay," he said. "Stay until the storm passes. Stay until—" He shook his head. "Just stay." Clara looked at the child in her arms, at those old haunted eyes now closed against her shoulder. "All right," she said. "I'll stay." That night, Clara learned the weight of silence. She got Ellie settled on the old rocking chair by the fire, wrapped in a quilt that smelled of cedar and thyme. The child refused to let go of her hand. Every time Clara tried to pull away, those small fingers tightened. Josiah sat across the room, elbows on his knees, staring into the flames. Her name was Hannah. Clara looked up. "My wife." He didn't take his eyes off the fire. "Hannah Elizabeth McAllister. She died 2 years ago this past November." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. You didn't know her." He paused. "I wish you had. She was—" He trailed off, searching for words that wouldn't come. "Tell me about her," Clara said softly. Josiah was quiet for a long moment. Then, "She was stubborn. Lord, she was stubborn. First time I saw her, she was chewing out a shopkeeper in Fort Laramie. Man tried to shortchange her on a bolt of cloth. She dressed him down so hard he gave her the whole thing for free and apologized for the inconvenience." Clara smiled. "Sounds like a woman who knew her worth." She did. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "Knew mine too, even when I didn't. She used to say—" He stopped, swallowed hard. "She used to say, God don't make mistakes, that everything happens for a reason even when we can't see it." He looked at Clara then, really looked at her. "You show up at my door tonight, wrong ranch, wrong name, wrong everything. and my daughter speaks for the first time in 2 years." He shook his head slow. "Hannah would have said that was God's doing." "What do you say?" Josiah's eyes went back to the fire. "I say I stopped believing in God the night my wife disappeared." Clara's blood went cold. "Disappeared?" He didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was hollow. "I was drunk that night. Had too much whiskey. We'd had words earlier, I don't even remember what about. She took Ellie upstairs to bed. I stayed by the fire." He stopped, his hands clenched into fists. "When I woke up next morning, there was blood on my shirt, blood on the floor by the back door, and Hannah was gone." "Gone where?" "Nobody knows." He looked up. His eyes were red but dry. "Sheriff came, asked questions, found nothing, no body, no tracks, just gone." Clara's mind raced. "The blood, how much was there?" "Enough." His jaw tightened. "Enough to know something bad happened." "And you don't remember?" "I remember going to sleep by the fire. I remember waking up with blood on my hands." He held up his palms like he could still see it. "That's all I got. That's all I'll ever have." Clara looked at the child sleeping in her arms. "Ellie saw something." "I know." "Have you asked her?" Josiah's face twisted. "She ain't spoken a word in 2 years, ma'am. How am I supposed to ask her anything? She spoke tonight." "To you." He leaned forward. "She spoke to you. Not me. Never me." The pain in his voice was raw enough to draw blood. Clara held his gaze. "Then maybe I need to be the one to ask." The next morning came gray and bitter. Clara woke to find Ellie already sitting at the foot of her bed watching her with those old, solemn eyes. "Morning, sweetheart." Ellie didn't answer, but she held something out in her small hands. A piece of paper, folded twice. Clara took it and unfolded it slow. Her blood turned to ice. It was a drawing, crude, done in charcoal, but the images were clear enough. A woman lying on the ground, a dark figure standing over her. And in the corner, small and alone, a little girl hiding behind a door. Above the dark figure, scraped in jagged letters, was a single word, Silas. Clara looked at Ellie. "Who's Silas, sweetheart?" The child's face went white. She scrambled backward off the bed, eyes wide with terror. "Ellie!" But the girl was already gone, running down the hall, like the devil himself was chasing her. Clara found Josiah in the barn forking hay into the horse stalls. "We need to talk." He didn't look up. "Morning to you, too." "Josiah." She grabbed his arm. "Who's Silas?" He went still, dead still. The pitchfork slipped from his hands and clattered to the ground. "Where'd you hear that name?" Clara held up the drawing. "Ellie gave me this." Josiah took it, stared at it. His face went through a dozen emotions, shock, pain, rage, grief, before settling on something cold, something dangerous. "Silas Brennan," he said quietly. "Used to work this ranch. I hired him 3 years back to help with the cattle. Good worker, kept to himself. What happened to him? Caught him stealing. Money from the strongbox, supplies from the cellar." Josiah's jaw clenched. "Fired him 6 months before Hannah died. Told him if I ever saw his face again, I'd put a bullet in it." "Did you?" "Did I what?" "See his face again?" Josiah was quiet for a long moment. "No. He left the territory. At least that's what I heard." Clara looked at the drawing, at the dark figure, at the name scraped in a child's terrified hand. "Josiah," she said slowly, "what if he came back?" The color drained from his face. "What if he came back that night and you were too drunk to remember? What if Hannah tried to stop him and—" "Don't!" His voice was a whip crack. "Don't you say another word." "Josiah!" "I said don't." He grabbed the drawing from her hands, crushed it in his fist. "You don't know nothing about that night. You don't know nothing about this family." You showed up on my doorstep by accident and now you're— Now I'm what? Clara stepped closer, trying to help, trying to find the truth. Your daughter just gave you the first clue in 2 years, and you're gonna crush it up and throw it away. Josiah's chest heaved. His hands shook. You don't understand, he said. If Silas killed her, if he was here that night, then I let it happen. I was drunk and useless and I let it happen. You didn't know. I should have. His voice broke. I should have protected her. That was my job. That was the only job that mattered, and I failed. Clara reached out and took his hand. Then stop failing now. He looked at her, eyes wet, jaw trembling. Help me find the truth, she said. For Hannah, for Ellie, for yourself. Josiah stared at her for a long moment. Then slowly he unclenched his fist, smoothed out the crumpled drawing, looked at it like it was a map to somewhere he was afraid to go. There's a woman, he said finally. Widow Kincaid. Lives about 2 miles east. She was awake that night. Said she heard something. Sheriff told her to keep quiet about it. Then let's go talk to her. Josiah shook his head. Storm's not done yet. Roads won't be clear till tomorrow. Then we go tomorrow. He looked at her. Really looked at her. Why are you doing this? You don't owe us nothing. You could walk away right now and nobody would blame you. Clara thought about the child who had called her mama, the arms that had wrapped around her neck, the voice that had broken 2 years of silence just to beg her not to leave. I stopped walking away a long time ago, she said. Didn't get me anywhere worth going. Josiah studied her face. Whatever he saw there made something shift in his eyes. All right, he said. Tomorrow we ride. That afternoon, Clara sat with Ellie by the fire. The child had calmed down after her panic that morning. Now she sat in Clara's lap, small fingers playing with the buttons on Clara's sleeve. Ellie, Clara said gently, can you tell me about the bad man? The girl went still. I ain't gonna let him hurt you, I promise. But I need to know what you saw. Ellie was quiet for a long time. Then in a whisper so soft, Clara had to lean close to hear. Mama told me to hide. Under the bed. She said don't come out no matter what. Clara's heart clenched. And then, I heard yelling. Mama was crying. Then, the child's voice broke. Then it got quiet. What did you do? I waited, like Mama said. I waited and waited. Tears slipped down her cheeks. When I came out, Mama was gone, and Daddy was sleeping by the fire. Clara held her tighter. You're so brave, sweetheart. So brave. Is the bad man gonna come back? Clara looked toward the window. Snow was falling again, thick and heavy. I don't know, she said honestly. But if he does, I'm gonna be ready. Ellie pressed her face against Clara's shoulder. I don't want you to go, she whispered. Clara stroked her hair. I ain't going anywhere. Promise. Clara closed her eyes, felt the small heart beating against her chest, felt the weight of a child who had already lost too much. Promise, she said. Mug. That night, Josiah found Clara standing at the window, staring out at the snow. Can't sleep. She shook her head. Mind won't quiet down. He moved to stand beside her, close enough that she could smell wood smoke and leather. I owe you an apology, he said. For earlier. In the barn. I shouldn't have. You were scared. Nothing to apologize for. Fear ain't an excuse for cruelty. Clara looked at him. Is that what you think you were cruel? I think I was a man who's been carrying a weight too heavy to hold. He met her eyes. And I think you're the first person in 2 years who's tried to help me carry it. Clara didn't know what to say, so she said nothing. They stood together in the dark watching the snow fall. That ring on the mantel, Clara said finally. It was hers. Josiah nodded. Took it off her hand the night I proposed. Said I'd put it back on her finger the day we got married. He paused. Never got to take it off again. You still wear yours? He looked down at his left hand, at the gold band worn thin from years of work. Ain't ready to let go, he said quietly. Don't know if I ever will be. Clara understood that. Understood it more than he knew. The letter said this was Red Bluff Ranch, she said. The one from the agency. Said I was to marry Samuel Briggs at Red Bluff Ranch. This is Blackwater Creek. Red Bluff's about 20 miles south. Then how'd I end up here? Josiah shook his head. Stagecoach driver must have mixed up the directions. Happens sometimes out here. Land all looks the same when you don't know it. Clara thought about that. A wrong turn. A mistaken direction. A door that should never have opened. And a little girl who spoke for the first time in 2 years because a stranger walked through it. Your wife, Clara said. She believed in God's plan, in things happenin' for a reason. She did. Do you think she'd say this was part of it? Josiah was quiet for a long moment. I think, he said finally, she'd say I'm too stubborn to see what's right in front of me. Clara looked at him. And what's that? He turned to face her. In the dim light, his eyes weren't cold anymore. They were tired, wounded, but open in a way they hadn't been before. A second chance, he said. Maybe. Clara's heart beat hard against her ribs. Before she could respond, a sound shattered the silence. Ellie screaming. They ran. The child was sitting up in bed, eyes wide with terror, hands clutching the blankets. He's here, she gasped. The bad man. He's here. Josiah grabbed her shoulders. Baby girl, it was a nightmare. Just a nightmare. No. Ellie shook her head wildly. I saw him. Outside the window. He was watching. Clara's blood went cold. She crossed to the window and looked out. Snow was falling thick and fast. The world beyond the glass was nothing but white and shadow. But there in the fresh powder beneath the window footprints. A man's boot prints leading from the tree line to the house and back again. Clara turned to Josiah. His face had gone pale as death. He's back, she said. Silas Brennan is back. Outside, the wind howled like a warning. And somewhere in the darkness, a man was watching. Waiting. Josiah grabbed the rifle from above the fireplace. Stay here, he said. Lock the door behind me. Clara caught his arm. You ain't going out there alone. The hell I ain't. Josiah. She stepped in front of him. If Silas Brennan killed your wife, you think he's gonna let you walk up on him in the dark? He's been watching. He's been waiting. You go out there half-cocked, you're gonna end up dead. And then what happens to Ellie? Josiah's jaw worked. His knuckles went white on the rifle stock. I can't just stand here. Then don't stand here. Think. Clara pointed toward the window. Them footprints lead back to the tree line. He's gone for now. Come mornin' we follow the trail. We find out where he's hidin'. And we do this smart. Smart. Josiah spat the word like poison. That man might have killed my wife, and you want me to be smart. I want you to be alive. Clara held his gaze. Hannah would have wanted that too. The fight went out of him. Slow like air from a punctured lung, he lowered the rifle. First light, he said. We ride. First light, Clara agreed. Behind them, Ellie sat on the bed, knees pulled to her chest, eyes fixed on the window like she could still see the shadow standing there. Clara went to her, sat beside her, pulled her close. He can't hurt you, she whispered. Not while I'm here. Ellie's small voice trembled. That's what Mama said too. Clara's heart cracked, but she didn't let it show. Your mama was one woman alone, she said. I ain't alone, and neither are you. Not anymore. Ellie looked up at her, those old haunted eyes searching for something to believe in. You promise? Clara kissed her forehead. I promise. Nobody slept that night. Josiah sat by the fire with the rifle across his knees, eyes on the door. Clara stayed with Ellie, holding her until the child's breathing finally went slow and even. But even then, Clara didn't close her eyes. She watched the window, watched the shadows move across the glass, listened to every creak, every groan, every whisper of wind through the walls, and she thought about Hannah. A woman who had tried to protect her daughter. A woman who had faced a monster in the dark. A woman who had died, or worse, while her husband slept 10 feet away. Clara's hand moved to her own side, to the scar beneath her ribs, the one she never talked about, the one that had taken everything from her. She understood loss. She understood surviving when you shouldn't have. She understood carrying a weight that never got lighter. But she also understood something else. Some fights were worth dying for. And this little girl, this broken family, this chance at something she thought she'd never have, this was worth fighting for. The first gray light of dawn crept through the windows. Josiah was already on his feet, pulling on his coat. "Storm's past," he said. "Trail should still be visible if we move fast." Clara eased herself out from under Ellie's sleeping form. "What about her?" "Can't leave her alone. Not with him out there." "I know." Clara thought fast. "The widow you mentioned, Kincaid. How far?" 2 miles east, maybe less." "We take Ellie there first. Leave her somewhere safe. Then we follow the trail." Josiah nodded slowly. "Ruth Kincaid's a tough old bird. She'll look after her." "Then let's move." They woke Ellie gentle. The child was groggy, confused, but when she saw them both dressed for travel, fear flashed across her face. "Where are we going?" Clara knelt down. "We're taking you to visit a neighbor, nice lady named Mrs. Kincaid. You're going to stay with her for a little while." "Why?" "Because your daddy and I have something important to do." Ellie's eyes went wide. "You're going after the bad man." Clara didn't lie. "Yes." "What if he hurts you?" "He won't." "But what if he does?" Tears spilled down the child's cheeks. "What if you don't come back? What if—" Clara took her face in both hands. "Ellie Mae McAllister, look at me." The girl looked. "I made you a promise last night." "You remember what it was?" Ellie nodded, lip trembling. "Then you know I'm coming back. Because I don't break my promises. Not ever. You understand?" The child stared at her for a long moment. Then she threw her arms around Clara's neck and held on tight. "I love you," she whispered. Clara's throat closed up. She wrapped her arms around that small, trembling body and held on like her life depended on it. "I love you too, sweetheart." Over Ellie's shoulder, she caught Josiah's eyes. He stood in the doorway, hat in hand, watching them with an expression she couldn't quite read. But his voice when he spoke was rough with emotion. "We should go." The ride to Widow Kincaid's place took less than an hour. Ruth Kincaid met them at the door with a shotgun in her hands and suspicion in her eyes. "Josiah McAllister," she said. "Ain't seen you in over a year. What brings you to my door at dawn with a woman and child in tow?" "Need your help, Ruth." "That's so." The old woman's gaze moved to Clara, studied her hard. "Who's this?" "Name's Clara Weston," Clara said. She's family," Josiah cut in. Ruth's eyebrows rose, but she didn't question it. "Come in then, all of you. Coffee's hot." Inside the cabin was small, but warm. Ruth Kincaid was a woman in her 70s, with silver hair pulled back tight and a scar running down the left side of her neck. Her hands were gnarled with age, but steady on the shotgun she finally set aside. "Now," she said, pouring coffee into chipped cups. "Tell me what's going on." Josiah told her. About the footprints, about Ellie's drawings, about the name scraped in charcoal Silas. Ruth listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "I wondered when this day would come," she said finally. Josiah leaned forward. You knew. I suspected. Ruth wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. That night, the night Hannah disappeared, I was awake. Couldn't sleep. Hip was acting up. And I heard a scream. Her voice was flat, matter of fact. Around midnight. Came from the direction of your place. Then maybe 20 minutes later I heard a horse, moving fast, heading south. Clara's pulse quickened. Did you see who it was? Too dark. Too far. Ruth shook her head. But I saw something the next morning. Footprints in the snow leading from your property down to the old mill road. 2 sets going, 1 set coming back. Josiah's face went gray. You never told me. Sheriff told me to keep quiet. Ruth's eyes hardened. Said it was family business. Said you didn't need no more trouble. Sheriff's my cousin. I know. That's why I kept my mouth shut. She looked at him straight. But I ain't gonna lie to you, Josiah. I never believed you hurt that woman. You ain't got it in you. Then who did? Ruth set down her cup. There's an old trapper's cabin about 5 miles south, abandoned for years. But a few weeks after Hannah went missing, I saw smoke coming from the chimney. Thought maybe drifters. Didn't think much of it. And now I'm thinking maybe it wasn't drifters at all. Clara stood up. The cabin. Can you tell us how to find it? I can do better than that. Ruth reached into a drawer and pulled out a hand-drawn map. Made this years ago when my husband was still alive. Shows every trail and shelter within 10 miles. She spread it on the table and pointed to a spot circled in faded ink. There. That's the cabin. Follow the mill road south until you hit the creek. Cross at the shallow point, then head west through the pines. You'll see it. Josiah studied the map. His jaw was set, his eyes hard. We'll find him. I know you will. Ruth looked at Ellie, who had been sitting quiet the whole time, clutching her rag doll. Leave the girl with me. She'll be safe here. Clara knelt in front of Ellie. You be good for Mrs. Kincaid, all right? We'll be back before you know it. Ellie grabbed her hand. Promise. Promise. The child held on for a moment longer. Then she let go. Clara stood and turned to Josiah. Let's ride. They pushed the horses hard. The snow was deep in places, but the trail Ruth had marked was clear enough. They followed the mill road south, crossed the frozen creek at the shallow point, and cut west through a stand of pines that blocked most of the wind. Neither of them spoke much. There wasn't much to say. But halfway to the cabin, Josiah pulled up short. Wait. Clara reined in beside him. What is it? He pointed to the ground. Fresh tracks. Boot prints and horse hooves heading in the same direction they were going. He knows we're coming, Josiah said. Or he's just moving around, checking his traps, hunting. You believe that? Clara looked at the tracks. At the way they cut through the snow, deliberate and unhurried. No, she admitted. I don't. Josiah checked his rifle. We keep going, but we go careful. They approached the cabin from the east keepin to the tree line. It was a small structure, half hidden by snow-covered pines. Smoke rose from the chimney. A horse was tied up outside, steam rising from its flanks. He's here, Clara whispered. Josiah dismounted slow. Stay behind me. Like hell. Clara. I didn't come this far to hide behind a tree. She pulled the pistol from her saddlebag. You go in the front. I'll cover the back. If he runs, I'll see him. Josiah looked at her. Something flickered in his eyes. Respect, maybe. Or fear. You know how to use that thing. I was a nurse in the war, Josiah. I've seen more blood than you can imagine, and yes, I know how to use a gun. He held her gaze for a moment longer. Then he nodded. Don't miss. He moved toward the front of the cabin. Clara circled around to the back, keeping low pistol ready. Her heart pounded against her ribs. Her breath came fast and shallow. This was it. The moment of truth. She pressed her back against the cabin wall and waited. Then she heard Josiah's voice loud and hard. "Silas Brennan, come out with your hands up. Silence." Then a crash from inside, the sound of breaking wood, and the back door flew open. A man burst out, tall, wiry, with a face like a hatchet and eyes that burned with something wild. He had a knife in one hand and a saddlebag in the other. He saw Clara and froze. "Don't move," she said. Her voice was steady. Her hands were not. Silas smiled. It was a cold, cruel smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Well now," he said, "who might you be?" "Don't matter who I am. Drop the knife." "Or what?" He took a step toward her. "You gonna shoot me, little lady? You got the stomach for that." "I got the stomach for a lot of things you can't imagine." Another step. "I don't think you do. I think you're scared. I think your hands are shaking. I think if I move fast enough—" He lunged. Clara fired. The shot went wide, splintering the doorframe. Silas crashed into her, knocking the pistol from her hand. They went down hard in the snow, his weight crushing the air from her lungs. His knife came up. Clara grabbed his wrist with both hands, fighting to keep the blade from her throat. "You're gonna die," he hissed. "Just like she did." "Who?" Clara gasped. "Hannah. You killed her." Silas's eyes blazed. "She shouldn't have fought. Should have just given me what I wanted. But she had to be difficult. Had to scream. Had to make it hard." Rage flooded through Clara's veins. She twisted hard, driving her knee into his gut. Silas grunted and rolled off her. Clara scrambled for the pistol, but he was faster. He grabbed her ankle and yanked her back, flipping her over. The knife plunged down. A rifle shot split the air. Silas jerked. The knife fell from his fingers. He looked down at the bloom of red spreading across his chest, then up at Josiah standing in the doorway, rifle still smoking. "That was for Hannah," Josiah said. Silas tried to speak. Blood bubbled at his lips. Then his eyes rolled back, and he collapsed in the snow. Clara lay there breathing hard, heart hammering so loud she could barely hear anything else. Josiah was beside her in an instant. "You hurt?" "No." She took his hand and let him pull her to her feet. "I'm all right." They stood over Silas's body. The snow around him was turning red. "Is he dead?" Clara asked. Josiah knelt down and checked for a pulse. After a moment, he shook his head. "Not yet, but soon." As if to prove him wrong, Silas's eyes fluttered open. He looked up at Josiah with a bloody grin. "You think this changes anything?" he rasped. "You think you're free now?" Josiah's face was stone. "Where's my wife? What did you do with her body?" Silas laughed. A wet, gurgling sound. "Body? Who said anything about a body?" Clara's blood went cold. "What are you saying?" Silas's grin widened. "She ain't dead, you fool. I didn't kill her." Josiah grabbed him by the collar. "Where is she? Tell me." "Sold her." The word came out like a curse. "Sold her. To a man in Laramie. Got $50 for a pretty woman with fight in her." Josiah's face went white. "You're lying." "Am I?" Silas coughed blood. "Check my saddlebag. Letters. From the buyer. Wanted to know if I had more merchandise." Clara grabbed the saddlebag that had fallen in the snow. She tore it open and rifled through the contents. Papers, crumpled letters, and at the bottom, a photograph. A woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile, hair pinned up, wearing blue. Hannah. On the back in handwriting Clara didn't recognize, "Received in good condition. Payment enclosed. Send more when available." The date was 2 months after Hannah disappeared. "Oh my God," Clara breathed. Josiah took the photograph. His hands shook. "She's alive," he whispered. "She's been alive this whole time." Silas laughed again, weaker now. "Alive, and probably wishin'. She wasn't. The man who bought her, he ain't kind to his property." Josiah's face twisted with rage. He raised the rifle. "Josiah, don't—" Clara grabbed his arm. "He's dying anyway. Don't give him the satisfaction." "He sold my wife. He sold her like livestock." "I know. And we're gonna find her. But not if you hang for murder." Josiah's chest heaved. His finger trembled on the trigger. Then slowly he lowered the rifle. Silas's eyes were glazing over. His breath came in short, rattling gasps. "You'll never find her," he wheezed. "She's gone. Just like you'll be soon enough." What's that supposed to mean? But Silas didn't answer. His head fell back. His chest stilled. He was gone. Clara looked at Josiah. His face was a mask of shock and hope and fury all tangled together. "Laramie," she said. "That's where we start. That's 3 days' ride, maybe more in this weather. Then we better get moving." Josiah looked at the photograph in his hands, at the woman he thought he'd lost forever. 2 years, he said quietly. 2 years she's been out there, waitin', sufferin', and I've been sittin' at home drownin' in whiskey and self-pity. Clara put her hand on his arm. "You didn't know. I should have looked harder. I should have—" "Josiah." She turned him to face her. "Listen to me. What happened ain't your fault. Silas Brennan did this, not you. And now we're gonna make it right." He met her eyes. She saw the pain there, the guilt, the desperate, fragile hope. "What if we're too late?" he asked. "What if she's already—" "Then we'll find out for sure. But we ain't giving up. Not now. Not when we finally know the truth." Josiah took a deep breath, steadied himself. "We need to get back to Ruth's place. Get Ellie. Then we ride for Laramie. All of us. I ain't leaving my daughter behind. Not again. Not ever." Clara nodded. "Then let's go." They mounted up and rode hard back the way they came. The sun was high by the time they reached Ruth Kincaid's cabin. The old woman met them at the door, shotgun in hand, eyes sharp. "Well," she demanded, "did you find him?" "We found him," Josiah said. "He's dead." "Good riddance." Ruth's eyes moved to the saddlebag in Clara's hands. "What's that evidence?" Clara dismounted. "Ruth, we need to talk, and we need to move fast." Inside, she spread the letters and the photograph on the table, explained what Silas had confessed before he died. Ruth's face went pale. "Hannah's alive." "We think so. Silas said he sold her to a man in Laramie. These letters confirm it." "Sold her?" Ruth's voice shook with fury. "Like she was cattle." "We're going after her," Josiah said. "Tonight if the weather holds." "Tonight?" Ruth looked at him hard. "Josiah, you're half dead on your feet. You ain't slept in 2 days. You push yourself much harder, you're gonna collapse before you reach Laramie." "I don't care." "You should, because if you show up there weak and exhausted, you ain't gonna save nobody." Ruth crossed her arms. "Stay the night. Rest. Leave at first light. That's the smart play." Josiah opened his mouth to argue, but Clara spoke first. "She's right." He turned to her. "What?" "Ruth's right. We're no good to Hannah if we're dead." Clara met his eyes. "One night. We rest, we plan. We figure out what we're walking into. Then we go." Josiah's jaw clenched. Every muscle in his body screamed to keep moving. But he knew they were right. "One night," he said finally. "That's all." That evening, while Josiah sat by the fire cleaning his rifle, Clara found Ellie in the corner of Ruth's cabin drawing on a piece of brown paper. She sat down beside her. "What are you making, sweetheart?" Ellie held up the paper. 3 figures, a man, a woman with yellow hair, and a little girl holding both their hands. But there was something new in this drawing. A 4th figure standing apart from the others. A woman with dark hair and kind eyes. "Who's that?" Clara asked softly. Ellie pointed to each figure in turn. "That's Daddy. That's you. That's me." She paused, finger resting on the fourth figure. "And that's Mama." Clara's throat tightened. "Your Mama?" Ellie nodded. "She's coming home. I can feel it." Clara wrapped her arm around the child and pulled her close. "Yeah, sweetheart," she whispered. "She's coming home." Across the room, Josiah watched them. The woman who had stumbled into his life by accident. The daughter who had finally found her voice again. And somewhere out there across miles of frozen wilderness, his wife, waiting to be found. He looked down at the gold band on his finger. The ring he'd worn for 8 years. The promise he'd made and thought he'd broken. Tomorrow, he would ride to Laramie. Tomorrow, he would find Hannah. And God help anyone who tried to stop him. They left before dawn. Ruth Kincaid stood in the doorway, shotgun cradled in her arms, watching them mount up. "You find that woman," she called out. "You bring her home." Josiah tipped his hat. "We will." Ellie sat in front of Clara on the mare, wrapped in a thick wool blanket. The child hadn't slept much the night before. None of them had. "How far is Laramie?" Clara asked as they turned onto the main road. 3 days if the weather holds, 4 if it don't. Clara looked up at the sky. Gray clouds hung low and heavy. "It ain't gonna hold." "I know." Josiah's jaw tightened. "We ride anyway." They pushed hard through the mornin' stoppin', only to water the horses and stretch their legs. Ellie dozed against Clara's chest, small body risin' and fallin' with the rhythm of the ride. By midday, the snow started. Not heavy at first, just flurries. But Clara could feel the temperature drop and the wind picking up. "There's a way station about 5 miles ahead," Josiah said. "We can shelter there if it gets bad. And if it's occupied, then we share the space." His eyes stayed on the road. "Ain't got time to be picky." The way station was a low-slung building made of rough-hewn logs, half buried in a snowdrift. Smoke rose from the chimney. Josiah dismounted first. "Stay here. Let me see who's inside." He approached the door, slow hand resting on his holster. Knocked twice. A moment later, the door swung open. A man stood in the frame. Young, maybe 25. Clean-shaven with nervous eyes and a preacher's collar around his neck. "Can I help you, friend?" Josiah relaxed slightly. "Looking for shelter. Got a woman and child with me. Storm's coming in fast." The young preacher looked past him to where Clara sat with Ellie. His face softened. Come in. Plenty of room. I'm Reverend Thomas Whitfield. Just passing through myself." Inside, the way station was cramped but warm. A fire burned in the stone hearth. A pot of something that smelled like beans bubbled over the flames. Clara settled Ellie on a bench near the fire. The child's eyes fluttered open. "Where are we?" "Safe place," Clara said. "Just restin' for a bit." Reverend Whitfield poured coffee into tin cups and handed them around. "Where you folks headed in weather like this?" "Laramie," Josiah said. "Laramie." The Reverend's eyebrows rose. "That's a hard ride in winter. Must be important business." "It is." Whitfield waited for more. When nothing came, he nodded slowly. "I won't pry, but I'll pray for safe travels." "Appreciate that." They ate in silence. The beans were thin and salty but warm. Clara watched Ellie pick at her food, her small face drawn with exhaustion. "You should sleep, sweetheart," Clara said. "I ain't tired." "You're lying." Ellie looked up at her. "What if I have bad dreams again?" Clara smoothed the hair back from her face. "Then I'll be right here to wake you up." The child hesitated. Then she leaned against Clara's side and closed her eyes. Within minutes, she was asleep. Reverend Whitfield watched the scene with quiet interest. "She your daughter?" Clara's heart stuttered. She's mine, Josiah said quietly. Her name's Ellie. Beautiful child. She has your eyes. Whitfield smiled. And the lady your wife? The question hung in the air. Clara felt her cheeks warm. She opened her mouth to correct him, but Josiah spoke first. She's family. Whitfield nodded, accepting that without question. Later, when the Reverend had dozed off in the corner and Ellie was still sleeping against her side, Clara found herself alone with Josiah by the fire. You didn't have to say that, she said quietly. Say what? That I'm family. We barely know each other. Josiah stared into the flames. My daughter called you Mama. You stayed when you could have left. You're riding through a blizzard to help me find a woman you never even met. He looked at her. If that ain't family, I don't know what is. Clara's throat tightened. She looked away. There's something I need to tell you. Josiah waited. When we find Hannah. Clara stopped. Started again. I ain't gonna get in the way. You understand she's your wife, Ellie's mother. I'm just a stranger who showed up at the wrong door. You ain't a stranger. Not anymore. Josiah. Clara. He turned to face her fully. Whatever happens in Laramie, you're part of this now. You don't get to just walk away. It ain't that simple. Why not? Clara's hands clenched in her lap, the words stuck in her throat like broken glass. Because I can't give you what she can. Josiah frowned. What are you talking about? Children. The word came out raw. Painful. I can't have children. There was an accident during the war. An explosion at the field hospital where I was working. I nearly died. The doctors saved my life, but... She pressed her hand to her side. To the scar she never showed anyone. They couldn't save everything. Josiah was quiet for a long moment. I'm sorry, he said finally. That must have been... Don't. Clara's voice hardened. Don't feel sorry for me. I've had 10 years to make peace with it. I ain't looking for pity. Then what are you looking for? She met his eyes. I'm trying to tell you that when we find Hannah, when your real family is back together, I'll go. I'll find that Samuel Briggs I was supposed to marry, or I'll find something else. But I won't stay where I don't belong. Josiah reached out and took her hand. The touch was warm, solid, real. You belong wherever Ellie needs you, he said. And right now she needs you more than anyone. That ain't gonna change just because Hannah comes home. Clara's vision blurred. She blinked hard. You don't know that. I know my daughter. I know what I saw when she looked at you. Josiah squeezed her hand. Some things are bigger than blood, Clara. Some things are chosen. She couldn't speak, couldn't find the words. So she just held on to his hand and let the fire warm the cold places inside her. The storm broke by morning. They rode out at first light, pushing hard through fresh powder that came up to the horses' knees. The cold was bitter, but the sky was clear. By noon, they reached the crossroads. Laramie's due east, Josiah said. Maybe another day and a half. We keep moving. We keep moving. They made camp that night in a shallow cave just deep enough to block the wind. Josiah built a small fire while Clara settled Ellie under every blanket they had. Tell me about her, Clara said quietly once the child was asleep. Josiah looked up. About who? Hannah. Tell me about the woman we're trying to find. He was quiet for a moment. Then he sat down across from her and stared into the flames. She was the strongest person I ever knew. Tougher than me, that's for damn sure. First winter we spent on the ranch, we lost half our cattle to the cold. I wanted to give up. Pack it in and head back east. He shook his head. Hannah wouldn't hear of it. Said we didn't come all this way to quit at the first hard turn. Sounds like a fighter. She was. Is. He corrected himself quickly. She is. Clara watched his face, the hope and the fear fighting for space. What did she look like before, I mean? Dark hair, brown eyes, smiled like she knew a secret nobody else did. Josiah's voice softened. She used to sing to Ellie every night, old hymns her mama taught her. Ellie would fall asleep in her arms, and Hannah would just keep singing even after the child was out cold. That's why Ellie stopped talking. She couldn't hear her mama's voice anymore. Josiah nodded slowly. I tried singing to her once, after Hannah was gone, but I ain't got the voice for it. And it just made her cry. Clara thought about Ellie's face when she'd played the piano back at the ranch, the way her eyes had lit up. She'll hear her mama's voice again, Clara said. We're going to make sure of that. Josiah met her eyes across the fire. I hope you're right. I am. She said it with more confidence than she felt. I have to be. They reached Laramie the next afternoon. It was a rough town. Mud streets frozen hard as iron. Buildings weathered and wind-beaten. Men in heavy coats moving between saloons and general stores, their breath clouding in the cold air. Josiah pulled up in front of the sheriff's office. Wait here with Ellie. Let me see what I can find out. Josiah. Clara. He turned to look at her. Some questions are better asked man to man. Trust me. She didn't like it, but she nodded. He was inside for nearly half an hour. When he came out, his face was grim. Sheriff knows the man, he said, mounting up. Name's Victor Crane. Runs a trading post about 2 miles north of town. Deals in furs, horses, and... He stopped. And what? Josiah's jaw clenched. And women. Sheriff says there's been rumors for years, but nobody's ever been able to prove anything. Crane's got money, got connections, got men who make problems disappear. Clara's blood went cold. And Hannah? Sheriff don't know for sure, but he says Crane's had a woman working at his place for about 2 years now. Dark hair, keeps to herself, never comes into town. That could be her. That could be her. Josiah's eyes blazed. And if it is, I'm bringing her home, whatever it takes. They rode north. The trade-in post was a sprawling compound surrounded by a wooden fence. Smoke rose from multiple chimneys. Men moved between buildings carrying crates and barrels. Josiah dismounted at the gate. A guard stepped forward, young, hard-faced, with a rifle across his chest. Help you, mister. Looking for Victor Crane. Mr. Crane don't see visitors without an appointment. He'll see me. Josiah's voice was steel. Tell him Josiah McAllister is here about a woman named Hannah. The guard's eyes flickered. Just for a moment. Then his face went blank again. Wait here. He disappeared through the gate. Clara dismounted, lifting Ellie down with her. What's the plan? Ain't got one yet. That's reassuring. I'm making this up as I go. Josiah checked his pistol. If things go bad, you take Ellie and you ride. Don't look back. Don't wait for me. I ain't leaving you. You will if I tell you to. No. Clara stepped closer. I won't. We came here together. We leave together. All of us, including Hannah. Josiah looked at her for a long moment. Then something softened in his eyes. You're as stubborn as she is. I'll take that as a compliment. The gate swung open. A man walked out, tall, broad, wearing a fine wool coat and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. His hair was silver at the temples, his beard neatly trimmed. He looked like a gentleman, but his eyes were dead, cold, empty. Mr. McAllister. His voice was smooth as oil. I'm Victor Crane. I understand you're looking for someone. My wife, Hannah McAllister. I have reason to believe she's here. Crane's smile widened. And what reason might that be? A man named Silas Brennan. He confessed before he died. Said he sold her to you 2 years ago. For just a moment, Crane's mask slipped. Something dark and dangerous flickered in his eyes. Then the smile was back. Silas Brennan was a liar and a thief. Whatever he told you was probably nonsense. Then you won't mind if I look around. I'm afraid that won't be possible. Crane gestured to the armed men gathering behind him. "This is private property, Mr. McAllister, and you're not welcome here." Josiah's hand moved to his holster. Clara grabbed his arm. "Don't! Listen to the lady." Crane's smile turned cruel. "You're outnumbered, outgunned, and very far from home. I suggest you turn around and ride back where you came from. Forget about this place. Forget about whatever fantasies Silas Brennan put in your head." "I ain't leaving without my wife." "Then you're not leaving at all." The guards raised their rifles. Clara's heart hammered. She pulled Ellie behind her, shielding the child with her body. This was it. They were going to die here. In the mud. In the cold. Miles from anywhere. Then a voice rang out. "Stop!" Everyone froze. A woman emerged from behind Crane. Thin. Pale. Dark hair hanging limp around her shoulders. She wore a faded blue dress the same shade as the ribbon in the photograph. Her eyes met Josiah's. And Clara knew. This was Hannah. "Let them go." Hannah's voice was hoarse, like she hadn't used it much in a long time. "Let them go, Victor. Please." Crane's face twisted with anger. "Get back inside." "No." Hannah stepped forward. "I'm tired of hiding. I'm tired of pretending. I'm tired of this life you've made for me." "You ungrateful." "I'll stay." Hannah's voice cracked. "I'll stay forever. I'll do whatever you want. Just let them go. Let my husband go. Let my daughter go." Ellie's small voice cut through the tension. "Mama." Hannah's composure shattered. Tears streamed down her face. "Ellie. Oh, sweet girl. Oh, my baby." She started toward them, but Crane grabbed her arm. "You're not going anywhere." "Let her go." Josiah's voice was low and dangerous. "I'm warning you, Crane. Let her go right now." "Or what?" Crane pulled Hannah against him, one arm wrapped around her waist. "You're gonna shoot me with all these guns pointed at you. You'd be dead before you cleared the holster." Clara's mind raced. They were trapped, outgunned, out of options. Then she saw it. A kerosene lamp hanging just inside the gate. Close enough to reach if she moved fast. "Josiah," she said quietly. "When I move, you grab Hannah." "Clara, what are you?" She didn't wait for him to finish. She lunged for the lamp, grabbed it, and hurled it at the nearest pile of hay bales. The lamp shattered. Flames erupted. Chaos exploded. Men shouted. Horses screamed. Guards scrambled for water. In the confusion, Josiah moved. He crossed the distance to Crane in 3 strides, drove his fist into the man's jaw, and ripped Hannah from his grip. "Go!" he shouted. "Go now!" Clara grabbed Ellie and ran for the horses. She threw the child onto the saddle and swung up behind her. Josiah was right behind them, half carrying Hannah, whose legs barely seemed to work. "Can you ride?" he demanded. I don't." "Get on." He lifted her onto his horse and mounted up behind her. "Hold on tight." They rode. Bullets cracked past them. One grazed Clara's shoulder, leaving a line of fire across her skin. But she didn't stop. Couldn't stop. They rode until the shouts faded behind them. Until the smoke was just a smudge on the horizon. Until the horses were foaming and stumbling. Then finally Josiah pulled up. They stood there in the snow, breathing hard, hearts pounding. Josiah dismounted and helped Hannah down. She collapsed against him, sobbing. "I'm sorry," she gasped. "I'm so sorry. I tried to get away. I tried so many times. But he always found me. He always—" "Shh!" Josiah held her tight. "It's over. You're safe now. You're home." Ellie squirmed in Clara's arms. "Let me down. Let me down." Clara lowered her to the ground. The child ran to her mother, threw her arms around her legs, held on like she'd never let go. "Mama," she cried. "Mama, Mama, Mama." Hannah sank to her knees and gathered her daughter in her arms. They clung to each other, weeping, 2 years of separation pouring out in a flood of tears. Clara watched from a distance. Her shoulder throbbed, her hands shook. But she didn't move. This was the moment she'd been riding toward. The moment she'd prayed for. Hannah was alive. The family was together. And Clara was exactly what she'd always known she'd be. An outsider, looking in. Josiah looked up and caught her eye. Clara. She shook her head. Don't. This is your moment. Your family. You're part of this family. No. Her voice broke. No, I ain't. I was just passing through. She turned toward her horse. Clara, wait. But she was already mounting up. Already turning away. Then a small voice stopped her cold. Don't go. She looked down. Ellie stood there, one hand clutching her mother's skirt, the other reaching toward Clara. Please don't go, the child said. I need you. I need both of you. Clara's heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. She looked at Hannah. At this woman she'd never met, whose place she'd been borrowing for the past week. Hannah's eyes met hers, tired, haunted, but somehow knowing. You're the one, Hannah said softly. You're the one who made her talk again. Clara couldn't speak, just nodded. Hannah reached out her hand. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for bringing them to me. Thank you for taking care of my daughter when I couldn't. Clara took her hand. It was thin, fragile, cold as ice, but the grip was strong. We should keep moving, Josiah said gently. Crane's men might follow. Where do we go? Hannah asked. Home. Josiah helped her back onto the horse. We go home. They rode through the night, stopping only when the horses couldn't go any further. At a small inn on the outskirts of a town Clara didn't know the name of, they finally rested. Hannah slept with Ellie in her arms, the child's small body curled against her, like it had never been away. Clara sat by the window, watching the snow fall. Josiah came to stand beside her. You saved us, he said quietly. Back there. That fire. If you hadn't. Don't. Clara shook her head. I did what needed doing, that's all. It was more than that. She looked at him. At this man who had lost everything and found it again. At the gold band still wrapped around his finger. You got your wife back, she said. That's what matters. Clara, I'm gonna leave in the morning. The words came out steady, even though her heart was breaking. Head back east, find somewhere to start over. You can't. I have to. She turned to face him fully. You don't understand. I love that little girl. I love her so much it hurts. But she's got her mama back now. Her real mama. And I can't... Her voice cracked. I can't stay here and watch her forget me. I can't. Josiah was quiet for a long moment. Then he said something that changed everything. Hannah asked about you. Clara blinked. What? Tonight, while you were out with the horses. She asked about the woman who made Ellie speak again. She asked what you were to me, to us. What did you tell her? I told her the truth. Josiah met her eyes. I told her you were a stranger who showed up at the wrong door and saved our family. I told her Ellie loves you like a mother. And I told her... He paused, swallowed hard. I told her I don't know what I feel anymore. But I know I don't want you to leave. Clara's breath caught. Josiah, your wife. My wife has been through hell. She's gonna need time to heal. Time to figure out who she is again. He stepped closer. But she told me something tonight. She said God don't make mistakes. And she said, if he sent you to our door, there must be a reason. Tears slipped down Clara's cheeks. I don't believe in God. Then believe in this. He took her hand. Believe in a little girl who called you mama. Believe in a family that needs you. Believe in whatever brought you to that wrong door on that frozen night. Clara closed her eyes. She thought about the life she'd left behind. The empty rooms, the silent years, the slow, steady ache of being alone. And she thought about Ellie's arms around her neck, Josiah's hand in hers, Hannah's grip weak but grateful. Maybe family wasn't about blood. Maybe it was about showing up. Maybe it was about staying. "All right," she whispered. "I'll stay." Josiah's hand tightened around hers. Outside, the snow kept falling, but inside, something warm had finally taken root. The ride home took 4 days. Hannah grew stronger with each mile. Color returned to her cheeks. Her voice came back stronger, steadier. But there were moments, long silent moments, when she would stare off into the distance with eyes that had seen too much. Clara kept her distance at first, gave Hannah and Josiah space to find their way back to each other. But on the second night, while Josiah was out checking the horses, Hannah came to sit beside her. "I know what you're doing," Hannah said quietly. Clara looked up. "What's that? Pulling away, trying to make yourself small." Hannah's dark eyes held hers. "You think you're in the way." "Ain't I?" "No." Hannah reached out and took her hand. "I spent 2 years in that place, Clara. 2 years of darkness. And every single day I prayed for Josiah to come. I prayed for someone, anyone to find me." Her voice broke. "But I also prayed for Ellie. I prayed that someone would take care of her, that someone would love her the way I couldn't." She squeezed Clara's hand. "God answered both prayers. He sent Josiah to find me, and he sent you to save my daughter." Clara's throat tightened. "I didn't save her. She saved herself. She just needed someone to listen." "You listened." Hannah's eyes glistened. "You gave her back her voice. You gave her back hope. That ain't nothing, Clara. That's everything." They sat together in silence for a while. Two women bound by love for the same child, the same man, the same broken family. "What happens now?" Clara asked finally. "When we get back to the ranch." Hannah was quiet for a moment. "I don't know. I ain't the same woman who left that house 2 years ago. I don't know if I can be her again." "Maybe you don't have to be." "Then who am I supposed to be?" Clara looked at her. "Whoever you want. Ain't nobody gets to tell you different." Hannah smiled. It was small, tentative, but real. "Josiah was right about you," she said. "Right about what? He said you were stubborn as a mule and twice as brave." Hannah laughed softly. "He also said he don't know what he would have done without you." Clara felt her cheeks warm. "He talks too much." "No, he talks just enough." Hannah's smile faded. "He loves you, you know. He might not say it, might not even know it himself, but I can see it in the way he looks at you." Clara's heart stuttered. "Hannah, I ain't angry." Hannah shook her head. "I ain't got the right to be angry. I was gone 2 years. He thought I was dead, and you—" She paused. "You kept him alive. You kept my daughter alive. How can I be angry about that?" "Because he's your husband." "He is." Hannah nodded slowly. "And he always will be. But love ain't a finite thing, Clara. It don't run out. It just expands." Clara didn't know what to say, didn't know how to hold all the feelings crashing through her, so she just held Hannah's hand tighter and watched the fire burn low. They reached Blackwater Creek on the afternoon of the 4th day. Ruth Kincaid was waiting on the porch, shotgun in hand. "Well, I'll be damned," the old woman said as they rode up. "You actually did it." Josiah dismounted and helped Hannah down. "Ruth, this is—" "I know who she is." Ruth's eyes softened. "Welcome home, Hannah. We missed you." Hannah's composure cracked. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she embraced the older woman. "I thought I'd never see this place again," she whispered. "I thought I'd die in that—" "Hush now." Ruth held her tight. "You're home. That's all that matters." They went inside. Ruth had prepared food, hot stew, fresh bread, strong coffee. The kind of meal that could bring the dead back to life. Ellie refused to leave Hannah's side. The child sat in her mother's lap, small fingers playing with the ends of Hannah's hair, like she was making sure she was real. You're so big, Hannah murmured, stroking her daughter's cheek. You grew so much. I'm 5 now. I know, baby, I know. Clara taught me to read. Hannah looked up at Clara, gratitude shining in her eyes. Did she? She reads real good, Clara said. Smart as a whip, this one. Ellie beamed. I can write my name too, and count to 100, and I know all the letters. That's wonderful, sweetheart. Hannah kissed her forehead. You've been so brave. Clara said brave is doing the scary thing, even when you're scared. Clara's right. Josiah sat by the window watching his family together. His wife, his daughter, and Clara the stranger who had become something more. Ruth came to stand beside him. You done good, she said quietly, bringing her home. It was Clara who done it. I just followed. That woman's got fire in her. Ruth glanced toward the table. You gonna do right by her? Josiah's jaw tightened. I don't know what right looks like anymore. You'll figure it out. You always do. Ruth patted his shoulder. But don't take too long. Life's shorter than you think. That night they stayed at Ruth's cabin. The fire burned warm, and for the first time in days, everyone slept deep. Everyone except Clara. She slipped outside just before midnight, wrapping her shawl tight against the cold. Her shoulder still ached where the bullet had grazed her, but the wound was healing clean. She walked to the edge of the property and stood looking out at the frozen landscape. So much had changed in such a short time. A week ago, she'd been the stranger on a stagecoach riding toward a man she'd never met. Now she was standing in the middle of something she didn't have words for. Family. Love. Home. Did she deserve any of it? Footsteps crunched in the snow behind her. Can't sleep. She turned. Hannah stood there wrapped in a heavy coat, breath clouding in the cold air. Too much on my mind, Clara said. Hannah came to stand beside her. I know the feeling. They stood in silence for a moment, two women staring out at the same darkness. I need to ask you something, Hannah said finally. And I need you to be honest with me. Clara nodded. All right. Do you love him? The question hit like a punch to the gut. Clara wanted to lie. Wanted to say no, of course not, he's your husband. But Hannah deserved better than that. I don't know, she said honestly. I care about him. I care about Ellie. I care about this family more than I've cared about anything in a long, long time. That ain't an answer. It's the only answer I got. Clara turned to face her. I ain't trying to take him from you, Hannah. I ain't trying to take anything. When I showed up at that door, I was just a woman with nowhere else to go. I didn't ask for any of this. But you got it anyway. Yeah. Clara's voice broke. And I don't know what to do with it. Hannah was quiet for a long moment. Then she did something Clara didn't expect. She took Clara's hand and held it tight. When I was in that place, Hannah said slowly, I used to dream about Ellie, about watching her grow up, about being there for her first words, her first steps, her first heartbreak. She paused, tears slipping down her cheeks. Victor Crane took that from me. He stole 2 years of my daughter's life, and I can never get that back. Hannah, but you were there. Hannah's grip tightened. You were there when I couldn't be. You gave her the love I couldn't give, and I'll be grateful for that until the day I die. Clara didn't know what to say. The tears came anyway, hot and fast. I don't want to come between you, she whispered. I don't want to ruin what you have. You ain't ruining nothing. Hannah wiped her eyes. I spent 2 years praying for a miracle, and God sent me to you and Josiah together. Maybe that's how it's supposed to be. What are you saying? Hannah smiled, sad and sweet, and full of something Clara couldn't name. I'm saying there's room for both of us. In that house. In that family. In Ellie's heart. She paused. And maybe in Josiah's too, if we let there be. Clara stared at her. You'd share your husband? I'd share my life. Hannah's voice was steady now. I spent 2 years losing everything. I ain't gonna spend the rest of my life pushing away the people who saved me. She reached up and touched Clara's cheek. Stay Clara Jane Weston. Not because you have nowhere else to go. Stay because you belong here. Stay because Ellie needs you. Stay because I need you. Stay because... She stopped, swallowed hard. Stay because we're family now, all of us. And family don't leave. Clara couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. So she just nodded. And Hannah held her close, two women united by love and loss and the fierce, stubborn hope that somehow, someway, everything would be all right. The next morning they rode back to the ranch. The house looked different now, smaller maybe, or maybe just more fragile, like it had been holding its breath for 2 years and was finally ready to exhale. Hannah stood in the doorway for a long time, hand pressed to the frame. I thought I'd never see this place again, she whispered. Josiah put his hand on her shoulder. You're home now. I know. She turned to look at him. But it don't feel real yet. Like any moment I'm gonna wake up and be back in that... Her voice broke. Josiah pulled her into his arms. You ain't going back. Not ever. I promise you that. You can't promise that. Crane's still out there. His men are still... Then let him come. Josiah's voice hardened. I'll be ready. Clara stepped inside with Ellie. The child looked around with wide eyes. It's dusty, Ellie said. Clara laughed despite herself. Then I reckon we got work to do. They spent the rest of the day cleaning, opening windows, airing out rooms that had been closed too long, beating rugs and washing floors and bringing life back to a house that had nearly died. By nightfall, the place felt different, warmer, fuller. Hannah put Ellie to bed herself, singing the old hymns she used to sing, her voice cracking at first, but growing stronger with each verse. When she came back downstairs, her eyes were wet, but her smile was real. She's asleep, she said. First time in 2 years I got to sing her to sleep. Josiah handed her a cup of coffee. How's it feel? Like coming home. Hannah took the cup with both hands. Like finally coming home. They sat by the fire, the three of them, not talking, just breathing, just existing together in the same space. Clara should have felt like an intruder, but she didn't. She felt like she belonged. The peace lasted 3 days. On the 4th morning, Ruth Kincaid's boy came riding in hard, his horse foaming and wild-eyed. They're coming, the boy shouted. Crane's men! They're coming this way! Josiah was on his feet in an instant. How many? I counted 6. Maybe more. The boy's voice shook. They got rifles. They look mean. How far? Maybe an hour behind me. I rode fast as I could. Josiah turned to Clara. Get Hannah and Ellie to the cellar. There's a hidden door behind the root shelves. Lock it from inside and don't come out until I tell you. Clara's jaw set. I ain't hidin'. Clara. I ain't hidin'. She grabbed the rifle from above the fireplace. You think I'm gonna let you face 6 men alone? You ain't trained for this. I shot a man 3 days ago. I reckon I'm trained enough. Hannah stepped forward. I ain't hidin' either. Both Josiah and Clara turned to stare at her. Hannah, you just got back. You're still... I spent 2 years being a victim. Hannah's voice was steel. 2 years of being weak and scared and helpless. That ends now. She crossed to the mantel and took down the second rifle, checked the chamber like she'd done it 1,000 times. Victor Crane thinks he owns me, she said quietly. He thinks he can send his men to take me back. He's wrong. Josiah looked at his wife. At this woman he thought he'd lost, standing there with fire in her eyes and a rifle in her hands. All right, he said finally. But Ellie stays in the cellar. No arguments. Agreed. They moved fast. Clara took Ellie down to the cellar, explaining as calmly as she could what was happening. "I want to stay with you," Ellie cried. "I don't want to be alone." "You won't be alone, sweetheart." Clara knelt down and cupped her face. "You'll have your doll, and you'll know that we're right upstairs fighting for you, fighting for our family." "What if you don't come back?" Clara's heart ached. "I'm coming back. I made you a promise. Remember, I don't break my promises." Ellie threw her arms around Clara's neck and held on tight. "I love you," the child whispered. "I love you too, baby girl." Clara kissed her forehead. "More than anything in this world." She closed the cellar door and slid the bolt home. Then she climbed the stairs and took her position by the window. They waited. The minutes stretched like hours. Clara's finger rested on the trigger, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. Hannah stood by the back door, rifle ready. Her hands were steady. Josiah crouched by the front window, eyes fixed on the road. "Here they come," he said quietly. 6 riders emerged from the tree line. Big men on big horses, rifles already drawn. At the front rode a man Clara recognized, Victor Crane himself, his silver hair glinting in the winter sun. Josiah's jaw clenched. He came himself. "He wants to finish what he started," Hannah said. "He don't like losing." The riders stopped 50 yards from the house. Crane's voice rang out cold and clear. "Josiah McAllister, send out the woman, and we ride away peaceful. Nobody has to die today." Josiah stepped onto the porch, rifle in hand. "Ain't no woman here belongs to you, Crane. Turn around and go home." "That woman is my property. I paid good money for her." "She ain't property. She's my wife." Crane laughed. It was an ugly sound. "Your wife, the woman I broke. The woman who begged me to let her go." He shook his head. "She's mine, McAllister, body and soul, and I'm taking her back." "Over my dead body." "That can be arranged." Crane raised his hand. His men raised their rifles. "Last chance," Crane called. "Send her out, or we burn this place to the ground with all of you in it." Clara's finger tightened on the trigger. Then Hannah's voice rang out from inside the house. Strong, clear, unbroken. "Victor?" Crane's eyes widened. He hadn't expected that. Hannah stepped onto the porch beside Josiah. The rifle was in her hands, pointed straight at Crane's chest. "You want me," she said. "Come and take me." "Hannah, dear." Crane's voice dripped with false sweetness. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Put down the gun and come home. I'll forgive this little rebellion. I always do. I ain't asking for forgiveness. You're making a mistake. The only mistake I made was letting you live this long." She fired. The shot caught Crane in the shoulder. He jerked back, nearly fallen from his horse. All hell broke loose. Crane's men opened fire. Bullets tore into the porch, the walls, the windows. Clara dropped low and returned fire. Her shots wild, but close enough to make the men scatter. Josiah pulled Hannah back inside. "You hit." "No. You." "No." They took positions at the windows, firing back as Crane's men closed in. One man went down, then another. But they kept coming. "They're gonna flank us," Clara shouted. "The back door." Hannah was already moving. She reached the back door just as it burst open. A big man charged through, knife in hand. Hannah didn't hesitate. She swung the rifle like a club, catching him across the jaw. He staggered. She hit him again. He went down hard and didn't get up. "Clara!" Hannah screamed. "Behind you!" Clara spun. Another man was climbing through the window, pistol raised. She fired without thinking. The shot took him in the chest. He fell backward into the snow and didn't move. Outside, the gunfire was slowing. 3 of Crane's men were down. 2 more were running for their horses, but Crane himself was still standing. Blood poured from his shoulder, but his eyes were wild with rage. He staggered toward the house, pistol in hand. "You think this is over?" he screamed. "You think you've won? Josiah stepped onto the porch rifle trained on Crane's heart. "It's over, Crane. Your men are dead or running. You got nothing left." "I'll come back. I'll always come back. That woman belongs to me." "No." Hannah stepped up beside Josiah. "I don't belong to anybody. Not anymore." She raised her rifle. Crane's face twisted with fear. "You wouldn't. You don't have the—" Hannah fired. The shot took him between the eyes. He was dead before he hit the ground. Silence fell over the ranch. Clara stood in the doorway, breathing hard, rifle still smoking in her hands. Her shoulder throbbed. Her ears rang. But she was alive. They were all alive. Hannah lowered her rifle slowly. Her hands were shaken now, the adrenaline fading into something raw. "It's over," she whispered. "He's gone." Josiah pulled her close. "You're free. We're all free." Hannah buried her face in his chest and wept, 2 years of terror and pain and hopelessness pouring out in great heaving sobs. Clara watched them, feeling tears prick her own eyes. Then she remembered. "Ellie." She ran for the cellar, pulling back the bolt with shaken hands. The child sat in the corner, clutching her doll, tears streaming down her face. "Is it over?" Ellie asked in a tiny voice. "Are the bad men gone?" Clara gathered her into her arms. "They're gone, baby. They're never coming back. Promise. Promise." She carried Ellie upstairs into the cold afternoon light, into the arms of her parents. Hannah took her daughter and held her tight. Josiah wrapped his arms around them both, and Clara stood apart watching the family she'd helped piece back together, wondering where she fit in all of it. Then Josiah looked up, reached out his hand. "Get over here," he said roughly. "You're part of this too." Clara hesitated. "I don't—" "Clara Jane Weston." Hannah's voice was firm despite the tears. "If you don't get over here right now, I swear I'll drag you myself." Ellie reached out her small hand. "Please, Clara. Please." And Clara, who had spent her whole life on the outside looking in, stepped into the circle and let herself be held. 4 broken people standing in the ruins of a battle, holding on to each other like the world depended on it. Maybe it did. Later, after the bodies were dealt with and the wounds were tended and Ellie was finally asleep, the 3 adults sat by the fire. Nobody spoke for a long time. Then Hannah said, "What happens now?" Josiah stared into the flames. "Now we rebuild. Now we heal. Now we try to figure out what kind of family we're going to be." "What kind do you want us to be?" Clara asked quietly. Josiah looked at her, then at Hannah, then back at Clara. "The kind that sticks together," he said. "The kind that fights for each other. The kind that don't give up no matter what comes." Hannah reached out and took his hand. Then she reached out her other hand to Clara. Clara took it. 3 hands joined. 3 hearts beaten as one. "Then that's what we'll be," Hannah said softly. "A family. A real family. All of us." Josiah nodded slowly. And Clara, for the first time in her life, believed she might actually belong somewhere. The fire crackled low. Outside, the snow was falling again. But inside, something had shifted. Something had healed. Something had begun. And none of them were ever gonna be alone again. The weeks that followed were the quietest Clara had ever known. Not silent. The house was full of sounds now. Ellie's laughter. Hannah's hymns drifting from the kitchen. Josiah's boots on the porch. The crackle of the fire that never seemed to go out. But quiet in a different way. Peaceful. Whole. The sheriff came 3 days after the gunfight. He took statements, examined the bodies, and left with a tip of his hat and a promise that no charges would be filed. "Self-defense clear as day," he said. "Crane was a known criminal. You folks did the territory a favor." After he left, Hannah stood at the window for a long time, watching the road where Crane's body had fallen. "I keep expecting him to come back," she said quietly. "Keep expecting to wake up and find out this was all a dream." Clara came to stand beside her. "It ain't a dream. He's gone. You're free. Am I? Hannah turned to look at her. I still see his face when I close my eyes. Still hear his voice in the dark. How long before that goes away? I don't know. Clara took her hand. But you don't have to face it alone. Not anymore. Hannah's fingers tightened around hers. Neither do you. The first real test came on a Sunday morning, 2 weeks after the fight. Ellie woke up screaming. Clara was at her side before the echoes faded, gathering the trembling child into her arms. Shh, sweetheart. It's all right. I'm here. The bad man, Ellie sobbed. He was coming for Mama. He was gonna take her away again. He can't take her. He's gone. But what if someone else comes? Ellie's eyes were wild with terror. What if someone else tries to hurt us? Clara held her tighter. Then we'll fight, just like we did before, together. Hannah appeared in the doorway, Josiah right behind her. They crossed the room and knelt beside the bed. Baby girl. Hannah stroked Ellie's hair. Look at me. Ellie turned her tear-stained face toward her mother. I'm right here, Hannah said. I ain't going anywhere, not ever again. Promise. I promise. Cross your heart. Hannah smiled through her own tears. Cross my heart and hope to die. Ellie reached out and touched her mother's face like she was making sure she was real. I love you, Mama. I love you too, baby. More than all the stars in the sky. The child's eyes moved to Clara. I love you too, Clara. Clara's heart swelled. I love you more, sweetheart. That ain't possible. Ellie managed a tiny smile. I love you the mostest. Josiah put his hand on his daughter's back. What about me? Don't I get any love? Ellie giggled a real, genuine giggle that lit up the room. You get the second mostest, Daddy. I'll take it. They stayed there, all four of them, until Ellie's eyes grew heavy and she drifted back to sleep. It was the first time the whole family had been together like that. It wouldn't be the last. Spring came slow that year. The snow melted in patches, revealing brown grass and frozen mud. But with each passing day, the world got a little greener, a little warmer, a little more alive. So did they. Hannah grew stronger every week. The haunted look faded from her eyes. She laughed more, cried less. Started singing again, not just to Ellie, but to herself. Old hymns, folk songs, sometimes just humming while she worked. Clara and Hannah fell into a rhythm. They cooked together, cleaned together, cared for Ellie together. At first it was awkward, two women trying to share the same space, the same child, the same man. But somewhere along the way, awkward turned into comfortable. Comfortable turned into natural. Natural turned into something that felt a lot like love. You know what I realized, Hannah said one afternoon as they hung laundry in the spring sunshine. What's that? I ain't jealous of you. Hannah pinned a sheet to the line. I thought I would be. Thought I'd hate you for being here when I wasn't, for taking care of my daughter, for loving my husband. Clara went still. Hannah? Let me finish. Hannah turned to face her. I thought I'd hate you, but I don't. I can't. Because every time I look at Ellie, I see what you gave her. Every time I look at Josiah, I see what you saved. She stepped closer. You didn't steal my family, Clara. You kept it alive until I could come home. Clara's eyes burned. I didn't do it for thanks. I know. That's what makes it matter. Hannah reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind Clara's ear. You're not a replacement for me, she said softly. You're an addition. You're family. And I'm grateful every single day that God sent you to that wrong door. Clara couldn't speak. The tears came anyway. Hannah pulled her into a hug, and Clara held on tight. Two women. Two mothers. One family. That night, Josiah found Clara sitting on the porch, staring up at the stars. Mind if I join you? She shook her head. He sat down beside her close enough that their shoulders touched. Hannah told me what she said today, he said. About you being family. Clara nodded. She's a remarkable woman, your wife. She is. Josiah was quiet for a moment. But so are you. Clara looked at him. Josiah, let me say this. He turned to face her fully. When you showed up at my door, I was a dead man walking. I'd given up on everything God hoped myself. I was just going through the motions, waiting for the end. His voice roughened. You changed that. You made Ellie speak again. You made me believe again. And then you helped me find Hannah. He shook his head slowly. I owe you everything, Clara. And I don't know how to repay that. You don't owe me nothing. I do. He reached out and took her hand. I owe you my family. I owe you my life. And I owe you... He stopped, swallowed hard. What? Clara whispered. The truth. Josiah met her eyes. I love my wife. I'll always love my wife. But somewhere along the way, I started loving you too. And I don't know what to do with that. Clara's heart pounded. Josiah, I ain't asking you to do anything. He squeezed her hand. I'm just telling you the truth. Because you deserve that. You deserve to know that you matter, that you're wanted, that you belong here. Tears slipped down Clara's cheeks. I never thought I'd belong anywhere. Well, you do now. Josiah's voice was firm. This is your home. This is your family. And nobody is ever going to take that away from you. Clara looked at him, this man who had lost everything and found it again. This man who had room in his heart for 2 women, 2 loves, 2 chances at happiness. What does this mean for us? She asked. For all of us. I don't know. Josiah smiled slightly. But I reckon we'll figure it out together. He put his arm around her shoulders and she leaned into him. Above them, the stars burned bright and endless. And for the first time in her life, Clara felt like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. The town of Fort Banner didn't know what to make of them at first. A man with 2 women. 2 women who seemed more like sisters than rivals. A little girl who called both of them Mama. The whispers started small, grew louder, became pointed stares and turned backs and doors that closed too quickly. Clara felt it most. She was the outsider, the stranger, the woman who didn't belong. One afternoon at the general store, the shopkeeper's wife blocked her path. We don't serve your kind here. Clara's jaw tightened. My kind. Women who steal other women's husbands. Women who live in sin. The woman's lip curled. You should be ashamed of yourself. Clara felt the anger rise in her chest. But before she could respond, another voice cut through the tension. Step aside, Margaret. Hannah walked up Ellie's hand in hers. Her eyes were cold as winter. This woman is family, Hannah said. She's welcome in my home, at my table, and in my life. And if you got a problem with that, you can take it up with me. Margaret's face went red. Hannah, You were just leaving. Hannah stepped past her. Come on, Clara. We got shopping to do. They finished their purchases in silence, the other customers watching with wide eyes. Outside, Clara let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did. Hannah's voice was fierce. Nobody talks to my family that way. Nobody. Clara looked at her, this woman who had survived hell and come out stronger. This woman who had every right to hate her and chose to love her instead. Thank you. Don't thank me. Hannah squeezed her hand. Just promise me you'll stop running. Stop thinking you don't deserve this. Stop waiting for the other shoe to drop. Clara's throat tightened. Old habits. Then make new ones. Hannah smiled. We got plenty of time. Ellie tugged at Clara's sleeve. Can we get candy now? Both women laughed. Yes, sweetheart, Clara said. We can get candy. The preacher came calling on a Tuesday. Reverend Thomas Whitfield, the same young man they'd met at the way station months ago. He rode up on a gray mare Bible tucked under his arm, nervous smile on his face. "Mr. McAllister. Ladies." He tipped his hat. "I was hoping I might have a word." Josiah crossed his arms. "About what?" "About your situation." Whitfield shifted uncomfortably. "Some folks in town have expressed concern. They asked me to speak with you." "Concern about what exactly?" "About the, arrangement." Whitfield's face reddened. "Two women in one household. Questions about propriety. About the example being set for the child." Clara's hands clenched at her sides. But before she could speak, Hannah stepped forward. "Reverend, let me ask you something." "Yes, ma'am." "When I was held captive for 2 years, did any of them, concerned folks, come looking for me?" Whitfield blinked. I don't know." "They didn't." Hannah's voice was steady but hard. "When my daughter was suffering in silence, did any of them offer to help?" "I suppose." "They didn't." Hannah stepped closer. "And when my husband was drinking himself to death, did any of them show up with comfort or prayer or even a kind word?" Whitfield had the grace to look ashamed. "No, ma'am." "No." Hannah's eyes blazed. "But now that we've found each other, now that we're happy, now that we're healing, now they want to express concern." She shook her head slowly. "You can tell them concerned folks that this family is just fine, better than fine, and if they got a problem with how we live, they can mind their own business and let God sort out the rest." Whitfield was silent for a long moment. Then slowly he smiled. "You know what, Mrs. McAllister, I think I'll tell them exactly that." He tipped his hat again. "I apologize for the intrusion. You folks have a blessed day." He rode off and Clara stared after him in disbelief. "Did that just happen?" "It did." Hannah dusted off her hands. "Some battles you gotta fight with bullets. Others you fight with words. Either way, you don't back down." Josiah laughed a real full laugh that Clara hadn't heard in months. "Lord have mercy," he said. "I married a warrior." "You married 2 warriors." Hannah glanced at Clara with a smile. "Don't you forget it." Summer came in full and golden. The ranch flourished. Josiah expanded the herd. Hannah planted a garden that grew wild and abundant. Clara took over the household accounts and found she had a talent for numbers she'd never known about. Ellie thrived most of all. She talked constantly now about everything and nothing. About the chickens in the yard, and the clouds in the sky, and the way the grass smelled after rain. She asked questions that had no answers, and told stories that had no endings, and laughed at jokes only she understood. She called Clara Mama Clara, and Hannah Mama Hannah, and saw no contradiction in loving them both. One evening, as the family sat on the porch watching the sunset, Ellie climbed into Clara's lap and said, "I'm glad God sent you to the wrong door." Clara's heart swelled. "Me too, sweetheart." "If you'd gone to the right door, you wouldn't be my mama." "That's true." Ellie thought about this for a moment. So maybe it wasn't the wrong door at all. Maybe it was exactly the right door, and everybody else just thought it was wrong. Clara blinked. Out of the mouths of babes. "You know what, Ellie Mae, I think you might be right." Josiah reached over and ruffled his daughter's hair. "She's smarter than all of us put together." "I know," Ellie said matter-of-factly. "Mama Hannah says I get it from her." Hannah laughed. "I said you get your stubbornness from me. Your smarts are all your own." The family sat together as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink and gold. 4 people. 1 family. Built not by blood, but by choice. Clara never did find Samuel Briggs. She stopped looking after a while. Stopped thinking about the life she might have had if she'd gone to the right ranch, married the right man, followed the right path. Because somehow, through all the wrong turns and mistaken directions, she'd ended up exactly where she belonged. On a clear September morning, Josiah asked Clara to walk with him down to the creek. I got something I need to say, he told her, and I don't want the whole house listening in. Clara followed him, her heart beating faster with each step. They stopped at the edge of the water, where the willows bent low and the current ran slow and steady. Josiah turned to face her. I've been thinking, he said, about what we are, about what we could be. And I talked to Hannah last night, talked for hours actually. He took a deep breath. We want to make this official. Clara frowned. Make what official? This. Us. All of it. Josiah reached into his pocket and pulled out something that glinted in the sunlight. A ring. Clara's breath caught. Josiah? It was my grandmother's, he said. She came west in a covered wagon, buried 2 husbands, and raised 6 children, and never once gave up. He held out the ring. Hannah wants you to have it. Clara couldn't speak, her vision blurred with tears. We ain't asking you to take my name, Josiah continued. We ain't asking you to be something you're not. We're just asking you to stay. To be part of this family. Not as a guest. Not as a helper. As a wife. As a mother. As one of us. Clara's hand trembled as she reached for the ring. What will people say? I don't give a damn what people say. Josiah's voice was fierce. I care about what my family says, and my family says you belong here. Clara looked at the ring, simple gold worn smooth by generations of love and loss and survival. Yes, she whispered. Yes. Yes. She laughed through her tears. Yes, I'll stay. Yes, I'll be your wife. Yes, I'll be Ellie's mother. Yes, to all of it. Josiah's face broke into a grin. He slid the ring onto her finger, and it fit like it had been made for her. Hannah's gonna be real happy about this, he said. She already knows. Who do you think picked out the ring? Clara laughed a real joyful laugh that echoed off the water and the willows and the endless Wyoming sky. They walked back to the house hand in hand, and Hannah met them on the porch with Ellie bouncing at her side. Well? Hannah asked, eyes bright. Clara held up her hand, the ring catching the light. Hannah's face lit up. Welcome to the family, Clara Jane McAllister. Ellie squealed and launched herself at Clara. You're staying forever. Forever and ever, Clara promised. Even when I'm old? Even when you're old? Even when I'm 100? Even when you're 100? Ellie threw her arms around Clara's neck. This is the best day ever. Hannah moved to join them, and Josiah wrapped his arms around all 3 of them. 4 hearts beaten as one. A family forged not by blood, but by choice, by love, by the simple, stubborn refusal to let go. The wedding was small, just family and Ruth Kincaid and Reverend Whitfield, who agreed to perform the ceremony despite the unusual circumstances. Love is love, he said when he arrived that morning, and I've never seen 3 people more committed to each other. They stood in the field behind the house, wildflowers blooming at their feet, the mountains rising in the distance. Clara wore the blue dress that had belonged to Hannah, the same one she'd found in the wardrobe that first night. Hannah wore white, simple and elegant. Josiah wore his best shirt and a smile that wouldn't quit. Ellie stood between them all, holding both mothers' hands. The vows were simple. I promise to love you, Josiah said, looking at Clara. To protect you, to stand beside you in good times and bad, to be your husband in every way that matters. He turned to Hannah. And I promise to keep loving you, to never stop finding my way back to you, to be worthy of the second chance you've given me. Hannah's eyes glistened. I promise to love you both, to share my life and my home and my heart, to be the wife and mother this family deserves. Clara's voice shook when she spoke. I promise to stay, to stop running, to believe that I deserve this, to love this family with everything I have for as long as I live. Ellie tugged at Whitfield's sleeve. Do I get to promise too? The Reverend smiled. Of course, little one. What do you promise? Ellie thought hard. I promise to be good, mostly, and to love Mama Hannah and Mama Clara and Daddy forever and ever, and to share my candy, sometimes. Everyone laughed. Whitfield closed his Bible. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you a family. Josiah kissed Hannah. Then he kissed Clara. Then he scooped Ellie up in his arms and kissed her too. We did it, Hannah whispered. We actually did it. Clara looked at the people around her, the husband she'd never expected, the sister she'd never known she needed, the daughter she'd never thought she'd have. Yeah, she said softly. We did. That night, after the celebrating was done and Ellie was asleep, the three adults sat on the porch one last time. The stars were out. The air was warm. The world was quiet. You know, Hannah said, when I was in that place, I used to dream about this, about sitting on my own porch with my own family watching the stars. And now, Josiah asked, now it's even better than I dreamed. She reached out and took Clara's hand on one side, Josiah's on the other. Because I'm not just sitting with my family. I'm sitting with my whole family. Clara squeezed her hand. I never thought I'd have this. Any of it. I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life alone. None of us are alone anymore, Josiah said. That's the whole point. They sat in silence for a while, three people who had found each other against all odds. Then Clara said, Do you think it was fate, me coming to the wrong door? Hannah smiled. I think it was grace. What's the difference? Fate is something that happens to you. Grace is something that happens for you. Hannah looked up at the stars. God knew what we needed even when we didn't. He sent you to us, not by accident, by design. Clara thought about that, about the stagecoach that had taken the wrong turn, the door that had opened when it should have stayed closed, the little girl who had spoken after 2 years of silence, 1,000 tiny moments all leading to this. Maybe you're right, she said softly. I know I'm right. Hannah squeezed her hand. I've been through too much not to believe in miracles. And you, Clara Jane McAllister, are the miracle I never saw coming. Clara's eyes filled with tears. But for the first time in as long as she could remember, they were tears of pure, uncompromised joy. I love you, she said. Both of you. All of you. We love you too, Josiah said. Always have. Always will. The night wrapped around them like a blanket, warm and safe and full of promise. Inside the house, Ellie slept peacefully, no longer troubled by nightmares. On the mantel, Hannah's photograph sat beside a new one, 3 adults and 1 child smiling at the camera like they had everything they'd ever wanted. Because they did. Clara took a deep breath and let it out slow. So, she said. What happens now? Josiah smiled. Now we live. Just like that. Just like that. He pulled both women closer. We raise our daughter. We work the land. We grow old together. We face whatever comes, and we face it as a family. Hannah nodded. No more running. No more hiding. No more being afraid. And no more wrong doors, Clara added. No. Hannah laughed softly. No more wrong doors. Only right ones. For the rest of our lives. They sat together until the stars began to fade, and the first light of dawn touched the horizon. A new day. A new life. A new beginning. Clara had come to Wyoming territory as a stranger, lost and alone, sent to a door that should have belonged to someone else. But doors don't make families. Love does. And in this house on this land with these people, there was more love than Clara had ever thought possible. She was home. She was family. She was exactly where she was meant to be. And she would never ever be alone again. If this story touched your heart, if you felt the bite of a Wyoming winter and the warmth of a family forged by choice, then you understand what we believe here at Wild West Love Stories. Some families ain't born. They're built. They're fought for. They're chosen with courage and sealed with love. From a mail-order bride sent to the wrong ranch, to a little girl who finally found her voice, to 3 broken hearts that became whole again. This wasn't just a story about survival. It was a story about coming home. Subscribe to Wild West Love Stories for more unforgettable tales from the American frontier, where love don't follow rules and family ain't about blood. Hit that bell so you never miss a moment. Because out here in the Wild West, the only thing stronger than the land is the love that grows on it.